Konbanwa, Jess des. The other day, I did a poll on my Instagram account, Nihongo Connection. Have a look, check it out. Lots of posts on there. I also play games. And I asked in the stories, Instagram stories, what people wanted to see on my Instagram account or in my stories. And they said they wanted stories about my time in Japan. So I started thinking about the things that happened to me. And the things that always stayed in my mind the longest were the mistakes that I made. And I made a lot of them, like a lot of mistakes. Mistakes with language, mistakes with culture, with customs. I spent my entire time making mistakes in Japan. Well, that's according to my memory anyway. That's all I remember is making mistakes in Japan. So I thought I would make a little video, try and make a video a day. I'll do my best. It'll probably go for quite a while. It might be like the 50 how I remember videos that I've been making as well. There's a lot of little things that come up. So mistakes that I made starting from when I first arrived in Japan. So the first one that sticks in my mind is back in 2000 when I first arrived. I had been in Tokyo for 3 days because I had been at the JET program orientation. And after 3 days, they then sent me to my host area, which was Oita Prefecture. So I flew from Tokyo down to Oita Prefecture, down to Oita Airport. I actually did that last September as well, when I was there visiting. So we flew down. It was myself and one other person that was staying in Oita Prefecture that was on the same flight. And at the airport, we parted ways and we met our supervisors, and then our supervisors took us and drove us back to where we were placed. Now, Oita Airport is really, really far away from Taketa City. And I think the drive probably took about 3 hours. Now, I was exceedingly jet lagged because I had now been in Japan for this would have been my 4th day in Japan. The time in Tokyo was really, really long. We had lots of talks all day long. We'd been given loads of paperwork. My brain was basically exploding after the first 3 days. And of course, I was in a brand new culture, so everything was new and my head was just full and tired. And it was hard to function, basically. I'll put my excuses in now. It was hard to function. So I'm now in a car. And I'm in a car with my supervisor and his second in command. Neither of them spoke any English whatsoever. I had only introductory Japanese, and these men were complete strangers to me. And of course, you know, as a female, you're always told don't get in a car with strangers. But these guys were my supervisor. They turned up at the airport with my name on a piece of paper. And so I needed to get in the car with these people. Don't worry, they weren't scary, but the whole situation was just bizarre. So I got into the car, and about halfway through the journey, we stopped for something to eat. And we stopped at this little tiny restaurant at the side of the road. I have no idea where it was. I wish I could revisit it and see if I can get those memories to come back again, but I have no idea where I was, but I'm sure it was a ramen restaurant. We sat down. They ordered for me because I had no idea. And the food arrived. And it was in a big bowl. So it was a very big bowl like this. They gave me chopsticks. Probably offered me a fork. But I was fine with chopsticks. And then I started to eat. Now, almost immediately, my supervisor was saying something to me. And he looked quite stern. Now, at the time I didn't really know what was going on, but he kept pushing my hands, moving my hands around. And what had actually happened was that I was very used to eating with chopsticks, but the other hand was resting on my lap. So I just had my hand on my lap. I didn't even have it on the table. I just had my other hand on my lap and had chopsticks. And I was just bending over the food and eating the noodles. First mistake. So you never bend over the noodles to bring them to your face. You need to hold the bowl with the other hand to eat the noodles. So having the hand on my lap was a big no-no. He kept bringing my hand up and putting it on the side of the bowl so that I would eat my noodles holding onto the side of the bowl. For me, this was really strange because if I didn't, usually back in the UK, I'd have a nice knife and fork, so both hands would be working. But because I just had the right hand working with the chopsticks, I would just keep putting my hand down and it would just end up back on my lap again. And he kept bringing my hand out and putting it back onto the bowl. I was just really tired and I just couldn't concentrate and keep my hand there. Anyway, as I continued, I'd take my hand off the bowl and just put it on the table, and he'd keep putting my hand onto the bowl again and try to get me to sit up straight. So the whole time I was trying to eat my dinner, but he kept moving my hand and kept pushing me to sit up straight, and it was really confusing. And I later found out that you should never be bending over your food and eating with your mouth very close to the bowl. I heard that it's considered to eat like a dog. So when the bowl is light enough, you should be bringing it up to your mouth and eating with it up to your mouth and putting it in to your mouth like that. Ironically, I think I then went to travel in Korea, and I think in Korea that's considered to be eating like a beggar, and they prefer you to eat with the bowl on the table, but that's another thing. So, word of warning, when you go to Japan, always keep your hand on the side of the bowl whilst you're eating with the other hand. If possible, bring the bowl up to your mouth to eat that way. So that was my first mistake in Japan. And I kept making that mistake because I had no idea what was going on. And I was completely jet lagged. So bear in mind, when you go to Japan, if you're eating, ramen is a big bowl. Ramen is a very big bowl, and it's very difficult to hold it up, and it could be hot as well. So just be careful. But if you've got rice, for example, always bring the rice up to your mouth to eat. So that was my first mistake. Eating. I made a mistake eating in Japan. Who'd have thunk it? So I would love to know what mistakes around eating, around ramen in particular, or perhaps with gohan, eating rice in Japan, what mistakes did you make? What did you learn from a dinner out in Japan? Or what have you learnt just from watching Japanese films, or watching anime, or reading manga even, about the culture of eating in Japan? I would love to know, because if you share on here, you're also sharing with other people who are reading this, and more of us can learn from each other. So let's share what we've learnt. And remember, hold on to your bowl when you're in Japan. Okay, that's all for today. I'll be back tomorrow with another mistake that I made in Japan. Don't worry, these will keep coming. There were loads and loads and loads and loads of mistakes that I made during my 5 years in Japan. Some of them way more embarrassing than others, and I will be sharing those with you. Okay, I'll see you again soon. Mata ne!